Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live Transmedia Network. I'm your host, Josh Lane. And our guest this segment is Nick Delgado. Nick has been a guest on our show before, author of a number of books on wellness and a longtime advocate of nutrition as a basis for wellness. It's a great pleasure to have my friend Nick Delgado back. Nick, welcome to the show.
It's great to be with you, Josh.
Nice to have you back here, Nick. Nice to have you back. I see you have, is this a new book? I don't remember seeing this book before.
It's a new release. It's available on Amazon, and it's called The Delgado Diet. It's basically a super healthy cookbook. Unlike most vegetarian diets, we go a step further. We include whole natural fats in the diet, from avocados, nuts, seeds, soaked, and so forth. But we don't add the separated oils. We believe the least processing, the better. So it's basically gluten-free, dairy-free, oil-free. And it's all based on whole superfoods that I think most of primitive societies and the human body evolved on. So I think this is a great opportunity for people to learn how to eat healthy and get the nutrients while avoiding toxins and particularly inflammation, because inflammation, we believe, stems from consuming things that our body's not compatible with, whether it be gluten. And some people ask me, why is wheat a problem? Well, in ancient times, wheat had only about 14 or so chromosomes, and it was more natural to the body. And then we bastardized it and changed it, and it's got GMOs, and it's genetically modified organisms. So now it's got like something over 30 chromosomes. So it's altered, and it's very high in gluten when ancient wheat wasn't high in gluten. So it appears that some people do have problems with gluten. Many people have problems with dairy product. Latinos, blacks, Asians, certain Asian cultures never consume dairy product, if you notice. So, you know, we really have to come full circle and decide what is the best anti-cancer, anti-heart disease, anti-high blood pressure diet and program, and yet will support good hormone levels. And this is what the Delgado diet is based on. I've been using it for 35 years.
Now, Nick, the idea of a gluten-free diet.
Yes.
First, please tell my listeners, what is a gluten-free diet?
Okay. Well, first off, recognize that even wheat, whole wheat, oats, unless it's steel cut oats, rye, quite often these particular foods, basically are going to contain this gluten protein that's present in these particular grains. Flour tortillas, I mean, that's, flour, white bread, that's got a lot of gluten in it. And that protein, that particular protein has been shown in many, many people to cause an autoimmune or an inflammatory problem where the white blood cells are released in excess numbers, like it's an invader in the body. In some of these people who are allergic, Crohn's disease, celiac disease, these are just to name some, but many people have subcategories of these problems, which can cause problems with mental concentration. It can cause arthritis. It can cause problems basically across the board, autoimmune conditions and inflammatory conditions. So we think that a gluten-free diet is appropriate for everyone to try out.
Now, having said that, what percentage of the American population, in your opinion, is gluten sensitive? And as a nutritionist, do you find this is a major issue with your clients?
Well, there's a book written called Wheat Belly, and he would go on to say that even if you are not tested to be shown based on, we do an ALA test on 184 foods, and gluten is one of the things we test for. We test for dairy and soy and multiple other foods and spices. And I do see a fair percentage, I'm going to say as high as 70%, show up allergic on this test, that they themselves, that individual has an incompatibility with that particular food. And we rate it on a scale of 0 to 3, 3 being the highest. And I see many 2s and 3s where maybe they could tolerate a little 1. 0 means their body is compatible with the particular food. But I've even gone so far, according to the author of Wheat Belly, he says that even if you show up with 0 intolerance on the test, you still should watch out for the symptoms. If you have any kind of joint problems, any kind of maybe memory or foggy thinking or skin conditions, I mean, there's a lot of reactions to delayed food allergies. And what I mean by that, you could eat some wheat bread and within the hour or two, you wouldn't notice a problem at all. But 3 days later, as your immune system and your white cells start reacting and they start breaking apart, they literally release the most powerful digestive enzymes in the whole body right from the white cells called the lysosomes, and they start eating up the joints and causing inflammation and organ problems. So it's a problem. And I would go further and say that dairy products probably even more allergic producing than wheat and gluten. But if you remove those two, which we have in this particular cookbook, along with soy-free, which is the third big offender, I think you really have a very low inflammatory, high super nutrition program that almost anyone can tolerate.
And Nick, when you use the word dairy,
yes,
what do you mean by dairy?
Well, dairy would come principally from cow derivatives, milk, cheese, yogurt. Some people are allergic to goat milk as well, goat cheese. We test the people for this, and some show up with an allergy, but dairy and its associated things like yogurt and cheese are very high on the scale of approaching 80-90%.
So once again, as a practicing nutritionist, you
yes,
find that the sensitivity to cow's milk products and to wheat products doesn't affect everyone, but it affects most of us.
True. Maybe certain ethnic races, maybe their evolution was a little different and possibly they tolerate it a little better. But the other offender is in children, when they're initially born, they should be breastfed for at least 6 months, ideally even a year or two. But some mothers start off with formula milks, and then they might have problems with soy because a lot of these formulas have soy in them. Or they say they want to introduce foods too soon to the child's diet, and these are foreign to the human structure, so they'll introduce some yogurt, maybe some wheat porridge, these things, or it could be just something else that like meat or pork, and the digestive tract isn't fully formed in these infants under 6 months to a year old, and so the body sets up this defense system for the rest of their life. They're going to be reacting to it, and it's going to cause problems that until you identify it, it could be quite the cause, but also the solution.
All right. And so now you also mentioned in your new cookbook
yes,
that you do not use oils. In other words, you use avocado, but you don't use additional like corn oil, safflower, sesame oil. You don't use those.
no olive oil.
And so once again, that's actually rather fresh thinking. So why do you feel that's important?
Well, Caldwell Esselstyn, who's currently published 19 patients. He's from Cleveland Clinic. He was formerly a heart surgeon, and he's identified the way through using a Delgado type diet. He didn't identify my diet particularly, but he's using the principles of our diet to reverse cardiovascular disease, atherosclerosis, and hardening the arteries. Now, it's interesting that he states that when you add oil, separated oils from foods, it douses or alters the nitric oxide ability of the body, and he believes nitric oxide, as I do, is a very important vasodilator to help control blood pressure, to help deep REM sleep, prevent melanoma cancer, lower triglycerides. So every time you're using these excess separated oils, it's processed. You're taking whole natural olives, or you're taking walnut and you're making it walnut oil or olive oil, and all this oil or grease goes into the bloodstream and it alters the biochemistry. Furthermore, Nathan Pritikin coined it lipotoxemia. He said that the excess separated oils would cause excessive viscosity in the bloodstream. And you see, people are all caught up in is it saturated fat, polyunsaturated, or monosaturated fat. That's not the debate. The real challenge is anything beyond like a small little teaspoon, a few grams of fat, say in a little, Udo's oil, a tiny bit. Anything beyond that, just think of at the head of a pin, there's 8 million red blood cells that could fit on the head of a pin. And every drop of excess oil that goes in, it's very sticky. Take oil and rub it into your hands and sprinkle a little salt or sugar, which is what we do with donuts or French fries, right? And all that oil causes the salt or sugar to stick. Well, the same thing happens within the bloodstream. The viscosity sticks the blood cells together. It's the number one cause of high blood pressure, hypertension. This was proven by Dr. Iacono in his studies, where he put people on a salty diet, 10 grams of salt a day, which is a lot of salt, and he reduced the oil out of their diet down to under, it was 20% of the calories and fat. We go as low as 10 to 15%, but then because we add back nuts and seeds, we get the percentage a little higher. But the separated oils, he proved increased blood pressure within 10 days, that quick. When he took them off the oils, the blood pressure came back down. He put it back on, pressure went up because blood viscosity. It thickens and sticks the blood cells, and when the blood cells get through the capillaries, they can't get through one by one. They stick together, and it's called rouleau. And I've been doing this for 35 years, looking under a microscope and looking at people's blood. And there's even a humorous video on my website at nickdelgado.com. It's how to become diabetic in 6 hours. And it shows me classically on a basic diet. I was eating rice and potatoes. I didn't mention this on the video. My blood triglycerides were measured on camera, and we showed it on a TV screen through the microscope. Then I consumed some oil, a small cup of oil, about the amount you would use in the Heart Association diet at 30% of calories fat, and my blood agglutinated and stuck together, and then the triglycerides went up, and then I chased it with some more fatty foods just to show how damaging fat is within hours of consuming. Stayed in my blood for 14 hours before my blood levels settled back down.
Now, Nick, you have been a proponent of more careful diet for at least 35 years, correct?
35 years, correct.
Right. So now it's 2013 now.
Yes.
So this information you're offering now about not using of the olive oil, etc. Now, when you were doing this in the 80s, is this new material that, say, perhaps 5 or 10 years? Did you know this in the 80s about not using olive oil?
In 1978, I knew about it because I was working with the famous Nathan Pritikin. He was a great research scientist. And I looked up the actual medical journal studies that he put a big stack on my desk and said, read these. And I attended his lectures, and I stood next to him for 3 years while he counseled patients within 30 days, putting them on this healthy, whole superfoods diet and exercise program. And some people would try and tease out, said, well, was it exercising 3 times a day on the treadmill for 30 minutes? Did that lower the triglycerides and improve their heart factors? But we teased all those evidence out by looking at journals saying people who exercise, like Jim Fixx, who advocated eating anything you want so long as you could run a marathon, he claimed would have clean arteries, and he didn't. He had a massive heart attack. Very, very tragic situation. So every culture in the world, without exception, 22,000 autopsy reports by Dr. Barnes and one of his other associates showed that when you look at every culture in the world that consumes meat, cheese, eggs, and oils and dairy product, they have a high incidence of cancer, heart disease, high blood pressure, diabetes, all the scourges that are just destroying the American public's health. This is why our healthcare system is so out of control, and why we just can't get back to the basics. If we really recognize this fact, we could reverse these problems. So in answer to your question, since 1978, when I changed my diet and I reduced 50 pounds, there's pictures of me that I could show you that just shock you how heavy I used to be, at over 205 pounds and 25% body fat on a typical American diet. I reduced 50 pounds. Now I'm more muscular than I was in those days. I added a lot of muscle density because I feel that as we age, we are also at risk for frailty. This problem of loss of strength and energy, being able to get yourself through the world, in your 80s and 90s. That's a very big risk. Respiratory problems, high death rate in cultures where people are too thin. So you got to make sure you maintain your caloric density on this kind of diet. So we eat a little bit more often on this kind of a diet. I also use supplementation. I augment my testosterone. I clear out harmful estrogens. I keep my growth hormone level in optimum. I monitor over 10 different hormones to make sure in my own body and in my clients that we optimize the hormone levels, because you can't follow one principle and assume you're going to reach past 100 years of age and be here to see the future of mankind. I mean, I want to be around to see the best things in life. I don't want to die early. It's not a good thought.
No, for sure. For those of you just tuning in to Here's to Your Health, we're chatting with Nick Delgado, longtime advocate of wellness through nutrition and exercise. Let me ask you a very practical question. What did you have for breakfast this morning?
It's interesting. I had a guest spending time with me. Actually, he's the founder of the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, Dr. Ronald Klotz.
Oh, really?
And he came in for a 4-day program, and he wanted to see why I'm getting such dramatic results with my clients. And I have a lot of high-end coaching clients. They enter into what I call the anti-aging makeover. And he came in and spent at up the street at my facility, and then was at my home every day. And we started out with an omega juicer, and we put through kale, Swiss chard, a lot of beets, 2 big beets we juiced through, and some carrots. And we took all that juice along with a 1 apple, and we put that in a Vitamix. And then we added baby bok choy and some Napa cabbage, and he wanted some watermelon. It was going to be a little too harsh when we first tasted it. I was used to it. Oh, and we added wheatgrass, like clipped off 2 things of wheatgrass, and I'm growing the wheatgrass. I have fun with this because when you clip it off, it's the third one you grew continues to grow, so you grow that. And so I thought it was marvelous. He kind of made a face because his first visit on day 1, I start him off with a little bit more fruit mixed into the blend, so they're comfortable with it. But by day 4, we got to really ramp it up, and we tested his nitric oxide upon beginning and 4 days later, and he was just amazed. He said, I've never seen my nitric oxide, which is the measure of nitrogen oxygen. It's the free gas that vasodilates the blood vessels. It's the very thing I mentioned that Caldwell Esselstyn says is doused or ruined from excess oils and fats in the diet. But you got to get enough greens and beets, Swiss chard, arugula. And then I gave him a tablet called Stay Young, a chewable tablet that's concentrated in plant nitrates and some other herbs. And within 4 days, his levels dramatically improved. His blood pressure was better than he's ever seen it. We worked out together. We went through my workout routine, which is really fun. He says it's invigorating, unlike any other workout routine. It's not like CrossFit or any of these things because we mix in a lot of trampoline and lymphatic work while we're exercising and stretching, and we do lift weights, and we do it intensely. It's an hour workout. It's really fun. And then we optimize everyone's hormone levels. So we measured his levels. His doctor sent me his lab results, and we're now going about certain things now that we have the test results to put him on certain products to optimize his levels. So here's the president of the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, the author of Grow Young with HGH, who's one of the pioneers that I think in the 1990s he started off this whole thing of bioidentical hormones and looking at eating healthy. And he says, I'm the only guy that walks my talk. He says, I've never seen anyone so diligent, so focused to really take care of one's health. And so he wanted me as his coach.
No, that's nice. And Ronald Klatz is an influential fellow. So what you had for breakfast so far, the green juices, etc. Okay, that's excellent. Here's my question. This is a hard question. Is that enough for breakfast? Does that stabilize your blood sugar?
I also added manna bread, Essene manna bread. It's sprouted without the yeast, and it was from millet and I believe rice, and it had carrot in it. And that topped it off for me. That gave me the caloric density because the juice by itself, you're right, would have been a little bit light. But I usually do add in his first couple days, I added in yams and sweet potatoes. Raw yams gives you the caloric density. And I usually blend them up in the Vitamix so I don't lose all the fiber and nutrients as well. So I juice my greens pretty much. I put my fruit in the blender, or I eat my fruit, and then I add sweet potatoes for caloric density. You got to add sweet potatoes to avoid getting too skinny on this diet. I mean, people think that's weird. What do you mean too skinny? Because most Americans are obese, right? But you could get too skinny doing this kind of a program, because then we transition from breakfast and we go ahead and have this big mega salad. It has a Swiss chard, arugula, beets. We put in some hummus, some olives, no olive oil. It's a fat-free salad dressing, and it's just delightful. I mean, I also have sprouts growing, and it has like peas and lentils and garbanzo beans, different sprouts. And then I get the live lettuce, the leaves, wash them, and I wash them in alkaline Kangen water, and it's gone through a reverse osmosis and mineralizer, so it's as pure as it gets. And I take these leaves and I sprinkle big handful of sprouts. And it's just when they're start beginning to sprout. So there's a lot of nutrient density in there, right? When they sprout completely, they have a lot of nutrition too, but they have less calories. So in the earlier stages, they have more calories. So I eat those like burritos, wrapped, lettuce wraps, but with sprouts. And then I put some, whatever my favorite sauce or spice, or chili salsa is my favorite. Horrendez, I think it's pronounced. But we put some green or red salsas, and then some trace minerals, some little sea salt, and you're off and going. We must have ate about 10 of them,
Okay, so Nick, you really today, you like to see yourself as carrying on the work of Nathan Pritikin, who really was so influential in the 70s and 80s. But my question for you is, did you initially adopt his complete regime? In other words, say since for the last 35 years, you've had no eggs, no fish. You feel that's completely unnecessary.
Correct.
Okay.
I believe that Nathan Pritikin was absolutely correct, that nutritionally, that eggs were designed for embryonic to develop a chicken. If you feed eggs even to a chicken, they'll die of a heart attack. You feed eggs to a dog who's a carnivore, you can kill a dog. Literally, it's hard to believe this, but they're more carnivores. Now, we're more omnivores. We can eat a little bit of meat. We're not like a rabbit. It's a complete closed system. They're a complete vegetarian, and you feed a rabbit eggs, you kill them quick. Rabbits, their arteries clog up fast, but rabbits are, they're able to digest greens and things. We need the fiber and the nutrients, but we can't fully digest. That's where the fiber just passes out of our system, but that there's a purpose for it passing out the system. So I've adopted this way of life. I've taken it further than Pritikin, though, because he didn't go into the need to maybe minimize gluten and wheat, and he had developed a wheat bread and Pritikin whole wheat bread, and it was good, but for those people with gluten issues, it could have been a problem.
And it was a long time ago. So wouldn't you say that you in the field, even though you knew a lot, say when you first started the first couple of years, don't you know a lot more now than you did 30 years ago?
Oh, sure. I have hindsight. I have the internet. I have Google. I have research doctors all over the world working with me. I'm part of that generation now where there's this mega knowledge. And, I tell people I read 172 books in the last year and a half, and they go, what? And I said, well, with Amazon Kindle, I just put on headsets, and every morning when I wake up at 5 or 6 in the morning, I'm listening to, covering through in 3 hours before 9 o'clock, before my workday starts. I'm listening to a good third of a 400-page book. And so within 3 days, I've read a book. Do the math. In 356 days, I don't watch the news. I don't, I go to a movie occasionally with my family and stuff. But I'm always absorbing knowledge and information, because to me, knowledge is really our savior. This is the way we help our health. We help our legal problems. We help our marketing issues, our company problems, manage it with people, with our family. Everything's in a book somewhere. Someone's written about it. And I just choose the best titles and read the reviews, and then download it. And every morning I'm downloading a new book every 3 days. So here's a question
for you. The young men and women who are involved with our profession of wellness, they're now promoting brown rice protein and pea protein and hemp protein. And in our generation, you and I really probably use a lot of breweragist protein. Do you use those today, one or two of those, or all of them, or do you think they're not necessary or not valuable? Or what's your position?
That's a good question, Josh. I was dismayed by the number of people who bought into the Dairy Whey protein-based products. I mean, you go to the health food store, you go to any nutrition section, and every one of them is loaded with Dairy Whey as the premier protein. I disagreed with that. I said, listen, let's look at human nutrition. The absorption of these proteins have been documented by Dr. Reddy, Dr. Lee, Dr. Knapp in children and infants and in adults. And without exception, the protein from rice, hemp, sweet potato, particularly add sweet potato in there. I want to add that in the mix. You're going to get an amino acid pattern very similar to human breast milk. And I would argue that our absorption rate, and this has been proven in the studies, the nitrogen absorption, the rate at which positive nitrogen balance is measured versus negative nitrogen balance, meaning you're not getting enough protein or nitrogen amino acids to meet your bodily needs. You want to be in positive nitrogen balance, and this is best accomplished with the proteins from rice, sweet potato, and hemp and so forth. I will argue, and I do agree, that so long as you have a varied diet and you're getting the caloric density, you probably don't need to add those proteins powders to your mix. I do add them in my smoothies, though. By the way, I didn't mention that in my smoothie. I'll add a scoop of exactly that. I have a protein plus, I call it, but it's got hemp, brown rice, and sweet potato. And then I add a scoop of Stem Cell Strong 28 herbs and another scoop of Slim Blend with like 52 whole fruits and vegetables in case I miss something in my mix. And I drink that down. But I will say this, that a person could design a program. get all the amino acids and protein they need. And shockingly, when you look at the Dr. Lee study where he put young 22-year-olds and he measured their nitrogen balance, and he gave them rice only, and he gave the other group chicken and rice. And we all think of chicken as a pretty good source of protein. And he was shocked to report that the group on the chicken and the rice, that the chicken required 20% more grams of protein to even absorb the necessary nitrogen, where the rice, the simple plain rice by itself, had enough amino acids that, again, was very similar to human breast milk in the protein composition. And these young guys, so long as they got enough calories, they ate enough rice, they were in positive nitrogen balance.
Is this Royal Lee? Which Dr. Lee is this?
Oh,
Not Royal Lee from Standard Process.
No. This is going back. Actually, the study was published in the 1970s. I was going through the medical journal files with Nathan Pritikin, and he was the first to point it out to me. Later, there was a Dr. Knapp and Dr. Reddy, and I can actually forward you the actual references, because it's intriguing. Because in early days of nutrition, people were trying to figure out what's the 4 food groups. Is there a pyramid? How do we get all the nutrition we need? And particularly since I love to lift weights and compete in strength endurance competitions. I'll be competing again at the Arnold Classic in February 2014. Literally,
what will you be doing at Arnold?
Well, I'll be with Team USA, and over the weekend, I had a man from the Kansas City Chiefs, a former NFL player, 300 pounds, 6'4", and I got him on stage in front of 300 people, and I said, here's what you need to do to qualify for the Arnold. And it's a brutal strength endurance competition where you take dumbbells, which weigh 45-pound dumbbells, 45 in each hand, and you curl while you're standing up and press overhead and back down. You curl and press one at a time, and you have to do at least 100 lifts in less than 6 minutes. It's like qualifying for a 4-minute mile to be able to qualify for Team USA. There's 3 of us right now. There's myself. There's Big Tim Nash, who was on the original Team USA that we won the World Championships in 2007. So it's like coming out of retirement. Here I am, age 58. I'll be 59 in the World Championships. I'll be the oldest guy on stage. I'll be against some big, strong professional athletes. Literally, there'll be pros up there too. And I'm trying to find the third man to the leg. It's either going to be my brother Brandon, who's also 6'1", 240. You can see I didn't get their genetics. I'm only 5'8". I'm dripping wet. I weigh 178. And people look at me and go, come on, take your shirt off. Really? And I show them a picture and I go, when I'm training, I'm strong, I'm powerful, and I've got that tenacity to keep up with, these strong guys. So I'll be in the final 3, no doubt about it, and I'll lead Team USA. I assure you, we'll be in the top 1 or 2 team. I suspect we'll win the championships against Germany, the UK, Ireland, Russia. We're hoping will show up, and we're going after it. I mean, the thing is, it's teams of 3, so each guy has to lift the 45-pound dumbbells, and we see how long. Here's a little picture of taken of a few weeks ago after my workout.
Well, I tell you the truth. The fact that you're 58, so it's not like you're being 24 here.
Right.
You look very strong in that picture, and frankly, here in person, you look very strong. That's very nice. Okay, let's go back then to the 70s.
Yes.
When Brewer's yeast was maybe in its heyday, right?
Yes.
And people say that's a complete food. It has B vitamins, complete protein, trace minerals. So what's your position on Brewer's yeast? Which the reason I ask about Brewer's yeast, I'm a big fan of Brewer's yeast.
Yeah.
And I find that it's very unfashionable among people, say, under 30. They're doing hemp protein, brown rice protein. That's great. But isn't brewer's yeast a great choice as well, or no?
Okay, there's two answers to that question. Yes, it is a very complete nutritional food, brewer's yeast. Mm-hmm. Some people have issues with yeast, and whether it be the yeast in bread or yeast in various cooking products. And so if a person tests allergic response to yeast, then they might have a problem with brewer's yeast. If they don't, I think it's a very complete food. I mean, just like with soy. I mean, some people are not allergic to soy. I'd rather use some fermented soy like tempeh, but if they're going to eat soy once in a while and place some meat, and they don't have to eat soy just to get the protein, though. That's not what I'm advocating. Right. But if they eat it here and there, there's many, many Asian cultures that have, really lived long lives free of cancer and so forth. And it wasn't just because of the soy, but it didn't cause them additional problems to our knowledge. So again, though, you have to be careful of people with very sensitive systems and digestive tracts. So brewer's yeast is an okay item. I think that you look back. Some of the original fitness stars, and you think of Jack LaLanne, and then prior to Jack LaLanne, there was the man who inspired him, right? And he tells the story of going to this lecture, and there's this guy Bernard Jensen talking in front of this whole audience, And Bernard was actually more. He was more of the iridology. There was another guy out there too that was
But it was
speaking.
Bernard McFadden.
McFadden,
Around
correct.
the turn of the 20th century.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. It was McFadden. And he saw this little scrawny kid walk into the room. There's a huge room, as Jack LaLanne tells the story. And I knew Jack, and before Jack died, I was at his funeral. Just an amazing man. But Bernard Jensen, or Bernard McFadden, that is, was lecturing about whole natural foods, getting outdoors in the daylight and exercising. He was really enthusiastic. And he saw this little scrawny guy getting ready to leave the auditorium. And he said, "You young man." And he looks up, and it was Jack LaLanne. He said, you come up stage. And he looks and he goes, "Okay." And he walks up on stage and he says, "You sit right here." He says, "You need this." And he says, "Well, I guess I do." He had acne, he was scrawny, he was out of shape, he was allergies. And as he sat there, he became enthralled with this whole possibility of and look at what Jack LaLanne did for a whole generation, right, on television. He had the longest running television show on health of any show, not just, let alone health, of any show that I'm aware of.
I think he went 27 years. Because he really he had enormous influence. It's funny. People listening to you and I today on the air would laugh at the whole idea that exercise at one time was very radical. People didn't exercise. Now people think, really? But Jack LaLanne really was very influential.
Yeah.
And of course McFadden before him and other men too. But Jack LaLanne specifically, he had influence.
Yes. It's interesting that Ray Wilson, who's in my coaching program to this day, by the way, I met him years ago. Ray Wilson started up More Family Fitness, and his company sold to, I think it was 24 Hour Fitness not long ago. But he started up more fitness clubs than any man in history. And he had to battle the FDA, he had to battle the Surgeon Generals state by state, because they were saying, hey, this is something wrong with this working out with weights and exercising. That's not good for heart patients. It's not good for this and that. And he created the first advertisements to come into fitness clubs, and they challenged those advertisements. They said, those are false claims. And he said, show me where they're false. And he fought them. And, the truth is, Ray Wilson is the man behind Jack LaLanne. Ray was the one who actually subsidized Jack and paid him $20,000 a month. It was a huge sum of money in those days to get his endorsement and to be the guy, the face in front of everyone. So Ray to this day lives down in Puerto Vallarta. I fly down, see him about once or twice a year, and he's an ornery guy. He's still working out 3 times a day. Ray Wilson, 84.
Well,
he's on some natural bioidentical hormones. He's using some of my supplements. He says that my product Power and Speed is like the ultimate pre-workout.
What product?
It's called Power and Speed. It gives you this tremendous nitrogen release. It's just amazing. You have to have good adrenals, though. I have to say, you really have to have a strong constitution to take on Power and Speed. But Ray's that kind of guy. He's been training all his life, and it's really an amazing story. I still battle with the older generation, though. Ray, Bob Delmonteque, they were into the meat generation. They really cling to, they had to have fish, eggs, meat, cheese. And so the battle, to me, because when you reach that age, you risk osteoporosis, inflammation problems. And, these guys of that generation had those problems. And, I'm trying to help them to reverse some of those problems without getting personal about, each guy's issue. Right. But, Ray is a great example of a man who's followed, in the footsteps, or, he was, again, the guy behind Jack LaLanne. I mean, I'm blessed because I run in the circles of some of the biggest stars in history. I mean, Nathan Pritikin, Tony Robbins. I worked with him for a number of years and learned the power of the mind. And then I went to his teachers, and I wanted to learn from them because they had something that I knew if you could embrace what I'm currently doing, what's called eyes open hypnosis. Because the biggest challenge I see is all these things you and I have been talking about for years, Josh. And the problem is it goes in one ear and they get excited a little bit, and then they go home and they keep doing the same thing they're doing because they're conditioned by TV advertising, commercials, by their family, by, going to restaurants. I mean, right from here, I'm going to Wacky Walk across the street, and I'm going to order some oil-free, some, good Asian vegetarian food. I eat out all the time, but I know how to order, and I'm careful because my body is a temple, and I have to protect what goes into the temple, whether it be in the mind or whether I consume. So I always tell people, if you're going to consume oil, put it on your skin, on your body. Like there's a gentleman now in Arizona, he's 111 years old. He rubs oil on his skin, but he doesn't consume it. You don't want to consume those oils, see? So I think that we're in that stage now where people are open to this information, but if they embrace, I'm doing a class this month. If you look at my website, there's a calendar of events. I've got one coming up in Irvine, one coming up in Costa Mesa at our offices.
So we're chatting with Nick Delgado. Nick, how can we get in contact with you?
Yeah, they can go to my website, nickdelgado.com. That's NICKDELGADO. Or they can call the offices at 949-720-1554, and you can come to one of these free classes. And my goal is to kind of, really get the people out there motivated, excited, and teaching them and using, if they're open to self-hypnosis, I'm going to teach in these coming classes this month how to integrate all these wonderful ideas, but to make it a part of your daily lifestyle. And it makes it much more 80-90% success rate versus maybe 10% success. The incidence of obesity and reversing obesity, it's a very dismal record of success, even if they're in a fitness and weight loss program. But it starts here. It really begins in how you decide what you're going to eat, whether you're going to exercise or not, when you're going to exercise, but integrating this into your lifestyle as a part of your value system. It's got to be high in the value system.
Well, Nick Delgado, it's been a pleasure. You have a lot to tell us. You're listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live Transmedia Network. I'm your host, Josh Lane. My guest has been Nick Delgado. We'll take a short break, and we'll be right back after these important messages.
Hi, this is Susan Levin, owner and founder of Speaker Services, inviting you to join me and co-host Jean Noel Bassiar on Monday evenings, 5 p.m. Pacific, for our new show, Talk Up Your Business, Speak Your Way to More Profits. We'll be talking to you about how to use your expertise to grow your business or service through speaking. Our expert speakers and author guests will share their stories and success secrets with you. Don't forget to tune in to Talk Up Your Business Mondays at 5 p.m. Pacific, exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream.tv. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Starlet Quarles, and I'm inviting you to join us every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. for a new show right here on LA Talk Live, The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People. Join us as we discuss the topics that are relevant to today's generational leaders. So don't forget to tune in to The Dialogue, Real Talk, Real People, every Wednesday from 5 to 6 p.m. right here on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, Live 365, Radio Flag, and now Stitcher Radio. Or watch and listen directly at latalklive.com. Reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
People, it's Jennifer Tapia from StarCam. You guys might know me from the red carpet, catching up with all the stars, but guess what? We're bringing the red carpet to the radio right out here on LA Talk Live. I'm going live Thursday nights at 6 p.m. We got hot topics, celebrities, and much more. We were featured on Chloe Lamar on E!, Howard Stern, T.I.'s Family Hustle. You know how we do. So check it out on Thursday nights, 6 p.m. All things Hollywood, everything celebrity. StarCam Radio?
StarCam Radio? StarCam Radio!
Oh yeah, follow us on Twitter at StarCam Radio.
No, introduce me.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. You're listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live Transmedia Network. And now for this segment, special science correspondent Dr. Hans Kugler, Ph.D., will be the guest host.
Thank you for this nice introduction. Let me tell you a story. A few years ago, I went to our health center with Dr. David Wong. And you remember we had Dr. David Wong as a guest here. And I asked, where's David? I had to talk to him about something. And he says, well, he's doing the energy management. And I said, what are you talking about? Well, look in there in this room. And so I looked in there, and there was David laying on some kind of a massage table, right, on one side. He seemed very relaxed. And people right next to him, they were just with their hands over his body, no touch. And, then a little bit later, when he got done, he said, wow, I'm really feeling good. And somebody said, well, I asked him, I said, what can you do with a German body, right? And anyways, I said, well, you want to try it? I said, yeah, sure. Okay, down here, lay down on I lay down on one side. And immediately I got really relaxed. I mean, I think I almost fell asleep, right? And the people are with their hands just over your body. They're able to sense energy distribution in your body. Like when you have a bottleneck energy that doesn't really flow very nicely, etc., etc. And then after a little while, they say, okay, turn around to the other side. And again, I fell asleep, and it took about an hour, the whole thing. And then we were finally done this, I felt like homeostasis. I mean, equilibrium, back to, a potential that was just amazing, right? And so anyway, from then on, I did this almost every week now at the Health Integration Center in Torrance. And today, as my guest, I have Mr. Ron Cato. He's the executive director of the Mayo Institute, or the Moore Wellness Center. And I'll let him describe a little bit what this is all about.
Okay, thank you, Hans. The MOA Wellness Center, the acronyms come from Mokichi Okada, the association. And at an early age, he came down with tuberculosis, and the doctors basically condemned him to death and said, get ready to die. He didn't want to accept that. And so he had this intuitive feeling of changing his diet to become a vegetarian at that time and resting in nature. And through that, somehow he healed his body. And he went on this path of discovering how, we're one with nature. It's really important for us to harmonize with nature. And through that, we can be doing things to help enhance our health and wellness.
Right. Well, it goes back to basic thinking. Many years ago, I was associated with Professor Emanuel Churaskin from Alabama University School of Medicine. He basically said the same thing. In a little bit of a different way. I was doing longevity studies at Roosevelt University in Chicago, and we subjected animals to one group of animals, all the mistakes people make. That means cigarette smoke blown through the cages, no exercise, a high-fat diet, right? No supplementation, stressed environment. On the other hand, we had animals, they received a special diet, including antioxidants, et cetera, quality foods that were made to exercise 3 times a week, naturally no cigarette smoke blown through the cages, and so on and so on. And Professor Churaskin actually predicted that we would get about 100% in average lifespans here. And Professor Churaskin always kept saying, we should work together because I'm basically the same thing. So Professor Churaskin defined lifelong health as a state of homeostasis achieved by doing so and so many different lifestyle variables correctly. And that's in essence many, many ways and overlapping. That's a little bit more about the different aspects of the lifestyle that are included here with the Moore Wellness Center.
Okay, well, Mr. Okada, diet, it's very important. Try to eat things with no chemicals, grown organically, naturally, reduces the stress on the filtering system in our body. Also, he developed this energy healing technique to strengthen the healing powers within our body. We have a filtering system. You have a German body, right? Let's
Definitely.
see. Right. The Mercedes. You think of the Mercedes and how well it runs. Unfortunately, our body, we don't have the lights flashing on the dashboard saying, oh, you need to change your filters. We have to maintain our filters functioning near perfection so that all the residual waste in our blood is eliminated. And, we can do that through the energy healing by not incurring stress. And this is another key component. Mr. Okada really wanted to have people commune with nature, be in contact with high-level arts that really reduce the stress. It's really a three-pronged approach: nutrition, diet, being in contact with nature, the arts, and energy healing.
No question about it. One of the key points. As a matter of fact, in the meantime, but the last few years, there's a big area of research. It's called telomere research, right? At the end of the DNA molecules, you have little elongations, and they're the longest at the time of birth. And it goes into the area of intelligent design, very interestingly, because every species has those telomeres. It's just with a number of different subdivisions. For humans, we have about 54, and every time when a cell divides, it drops off one of those cell divisions, and if we're all used up, that corresponds to the maximum lifespan of about 110 to 120, right? And it goes very much into the areas of lifestyle, what you just described. For example, stress is one of the strongest telomere shortening factor. Exercise is one of the strongest telomere lengthening factor. Naturally, there goes diet and all kinds of different things in that. But the bottom line is, with this research, lifestyle and health practices are established as true anti-aging modalities. But before we go on, I mean, you're actually a nonprofit, right?
Yes, we're set up as a nonprofit. We have suggested minimum donations, but we have a medical staff, MDs, naturopath, massage therapists. You could come in. We have a suggested minimum donation, but if you can't, make that, we accept whatever you can. We believe it's important to be able to give something, not just be receiving.
Why don't you give us a website and telephone numbers and so on and so on?
Well, the website is moawellness.org. The telephone number, MOA, M as in Mary, OA, wellness.org, O-R-G. Our telephone number is 310-574-9900.
Say the phone number again.
310-575. Oh, man, you're confusing me now. 310-574-9900.
Okay. So, and you also have associations with a number of doctors all over the LA area, right?
Yes. Well, not only LA, it's international. Mr. Okada had this vision. The word for hospital in Japanese, the two characters, it signifies an institute of illness. And he said people will not get better going to an institute of illness where they just treat the symptoms. I'm going to replace the hospitals of the world with institutes of wellness or treatment. And his goal was to, set up at least 1,000 worldwide. And so we've got these wellness centers set up throughout the world.
Agrees very much with today's findings. Like a few months ago, we were told what we have always been saying in the alternative movement. American Academy Anti-Aging Medicine is one of the largest organizations in this field. We've always been saying that the U.S. is number 52 in the world in overall ranking in health. Right? And people doubted that. Well, a few months ago, we learned that this is actually so. The U.S., with our tremendous potential, we are at the bottom of the end. I mean, of the total pool. It's amazing. With all our capacities, what we have available, that our healthcare system, well, a lot of doctors actually define this not as a healthcare system, that is a disease management system.
Exactly. There was a documentary on CNN a month or so ago called Escape Fire. You can purchase that on Amazon, and I'd really suggest. It really talks about the failing healthcare system and why. Because it concentrates only on the symptoms. It does not promote health. It does not promote wellness. It's on how to reduce the symptoms, which is giving rise to illnesses. Mr. Okada was saying, if the path of allopathic medicine is on the correct path, in the future you should see the number of diseases decrease as well as the hospitals. But, since when he said this in the early 1930s, we've seen diseases become worse and more hospitals being constructed. And as you mentioned, our healthcare system is on the point of bankruptcy.
Right. We had Dr. Gregory Smith on, who's an MD, professor at UCLA, who made a very similar movie, American Addict. right? And we will see that very soon, probably in just a few weeks, on a national basis. I mean, it's so many people who agree with the same principles. We have to achieve health. We have to change back to a true healthcare system where we educate people about importance. In the area of fitness, one of my specialties, right? We found, for example, that the strongest factor that prevents cognitive losses is actually weightlifting, resistance exercise, right? And we've always known the preventive factors in respect to heart disease and everything else, but we are changing that very much. Like in my book, Lifelong Health, Learn How to Control Your Genes, Stay Young with Age. It's an e-book. We have all the different health practices very well defined, and there was an Olympic trainer, Dr. Paul Ward, who helped me to summarize the activity, the exercise session. And now we're getting about statistically twice the results with half the time and with half the efforts. And it's a heavy effort on weightlifting, muscle exercises, a little bit cardiac, that's really very fine, quality nutrition, etc., etc. And when you do all the longevity studies without the exercise, when we get, remember I talked about earlier, we got 100% in average lifespans, it drops down by 50%. I mean, it is just absolutely amazing. Well, anyway, thank you for being here. It was a short segment. We'll do it again. Give us your name, address, websites, and telephone numbers again.
Okay, the Wellness Center, the name is the MOA Wellness Center, and the website is moawellness.org. Our phone number, 310-574-9900.
Well, magnificent. And I hope everybody listens in here and takes some notes. And maybe give you a call and start this. I've been doing it for several years, and I find it totally, totally amazing.
Okay, well, thank you for giving us the opportunity to introduce our activities.
Okay.
Hi, this is Susie Pruden. And yes, you've seen me on Oprah, Good Morning America, and The Today Show. And I'm inviting you to join me every Monday from 3 to 4 for my new show, Mastermind Live. Join us as we introduce you to the new thought leaders of the world who will inspire you, support you, and guide you to your next level. So don't forget to tune into Mastermind Live exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream TV. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hi, this is Dr. Levi, your fitness doctor, making a personal house call, inviting you to join me Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific for my all-new show, The Dr. Levi Show. Join us as we discuss fitness, health, and well-being, including emotional and spiritual health. So don't forget to tune in to The Dr. Levi Show every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific, exclusively on latalklive.com and the Talk Live Broadcast Network. You can also catch us on iTunes, Radio R&B, or watch us on Ustream.tv, or catch us on the Live 365 network, and now on Radio Flag and Stitcher Radio. Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live Transmedia Network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. And my next guest is an Australian bodybuilder named Guy Grundy. You may have seen Guy Grundy. He's, he was in a very funny Foster's beer commercial. Not to lead with that. And also he was in the martial arts film, The Lackey, which he had the starring role and did really a very lovely job. And he's done some DVD with John Lovitz. And were you not also on in a Gladiator series on what channel?
Yeah, that was Spike TV. That was probably what launched my Hollywood career after I retired from bodybuilding. I did The Deadliest Warrior, and everything started to pick up from there, and I started to get momentum. But prior to that, I came here to America as a professional bodybuilder. I was a two-time Mr. Australia, and probably when you talk about inspiration, the theme of the show, growing up, I had a very scattered childhood. I lived with pretty much every family member there was. I didn't meet my dad until I was around 9, and he was, unfortunately, at that point in his life, he had a lot of his own things to deal with, so it was probably good that he wasn't in my life, and I wasn't able to read or write at 13, and at 16, I was living on the street. So, I'd never had a role model or a parent to say, this is what a man does. So I've read a million biographies of books, and the turning point was me, I guess, when I seen Rocky to a degree, when I was like 10 years old.
Oh, sure.
And then I was walking in George Street, Sydney, Australia, and I seen the picture of the Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I just stopped in awe, and I just said to my best mate at the time, I said, bro, I said, mate, bro's an American word, I said, mate, I said, that's what I'm going to be when I grow up. So, I followed that path. I was a rugby player, I was a bodybuilder, and that's what's led me here.
You played rugby in high school?
Yeah, I played rugby up until I played at the Australian Championship level. For Randwick, who's the strongest provincial side in the world. They will, like the NFL, the Chargers, so the Patriots would be the team that's number one throughout the whole world. Randwick is considered the premier club. So I played for them, and it was a great experience. I'm a very physical person. I enjoy physical contact, and that's probably why then I also progressed to fighting. But yeah, rugby was a toughening sport for me, and I got to experience both ends of the spectrum. I was extremely small for my age. I've always said my insecurities have made me who I am today. And I was a little kid who was like a national runner. So whenever they got a hold of me, they'd beat the hell out of me. And then I got big and I became that bully. So I got to feel the experiences of both people. And I do a lot of instructing of training. And I relate to people well because I can say, look, I've been the big guy and I've been the small guy. And then I'll also say, I'm not going to teach you how to do everything. I'm going to show you what to do. And then you as a natural person are going to have your own instincts. So going back to that, that's something that I think that enabled me to be a trainer and get so much prominence in that area that I'm able to relate to people. I wasn't a smart learner. I couldn't read or write to 13, so obviously I wasn't too smart. So I understand the stigma of feeling like you're an idiot and then that pressure of trying to keep up. So when I train people, I don't teach to the slowest person in the class. Everyone's different. Some people I can be very hard on and they thrive. Some people need a lot of encouragement. Me, for instance, if you're a coach, I've said to my coach, I said, look, coach, you want the best out of me, praise me, be nice to me. If you put me down, you're going to make me angry and it's not going to work. But every person's different. I've read a huge amount of books by Vince Lombardi and also anyone that played under him to get an understanding of talking to that. And I think that's something that I've taken from the past to bring it into my future of learning from other people where I didn't have a dad to say, I never had, to my daughter, I always say to her, you can be anything you always stand up for yourself, and you can be anything you choose because you're special. And I say that to her daily ever since she was a baby. But I never had that. People would say, my dad always said to me, my mum always said to me, I'm like, damn, I never had one of these. I need one of these. So right. I went out, and I think probably the most poignant moment for me was when I was reading the Jack Dempsey biography, his own personal one. And for anyone that knows, he's probably one of the toughest boxers back in the 30s that ever lived. And he basically said, before every fight, I was scared, but I still fought, which made me brave. And then I was blown away. I sat back and I went, geez, I've been brave my whole life because I've been scared to do everything I've ever done. And for me to hear that someone of that stature said that, it was like, oh, okay, so it is okay to be fearful. It is okay to be scared, because everyone teaches like, I played rugby with the big guys. I'm like, are you nervous? And he goes, nope. He would be in the bathroom throwing up, so I couldn't see how he wasn't nervous. But men have got this thing of trying to man up. Right. So I think that I've got a daughter. I realize that I say, hey, look, it's okay to be scared, but the bottom line is you still need to do what you've got to do. And if you do it good, at the end of this, you're going to grow as a person and you'll be stronger. And if you fail, well, you did something wrong, and now you've got a chance to correct it.
So then, really, as a young man, even though you had a very difficult home life, you just gravitated towards wellness.
Almost, yeah. Well, it's funny. The thing that came to me was my dad. The fact that he wasn't in my life, but I knew that he was a fighter. He was a boxer, and he was known as Redbeard. He drank a lot. He got drunk and he beat people up. People go, "You're the son of Redbeard, right?" So I had a reputation even before I was out of the womb, it seemed. But yeah, I identified my dad as being a boxer and strong. So I've never ate bad food. I never had really any parental guidance. I just gravitated to the good of life. I guess when I watched TV, I went for the good guy, and the someone looking out for someone else, because I never had that. I didn't have someone put their hand on my shoulder and say it's going to be okay. And then the few times when I got older, someone did do that for me, and I was like, wow, one day, you know what? I'd love to give that feeling back to somebody else. Just a kid at the gym who's fighting, and I can see he's struggling, and I'll be hard on you because you need to earn respect to get to a certain level. There's not, I don't want children to train with. I want men. But, if you give your all and then you're depressed in the corner, that's when you'll pick your moment. You walk up and go, hey, give him an attaboy and say, we all have bad days. Get back up and keep going. Because that's the thing that I noticed from training with so many elite trainers, from Richard Salgado, Jason Zickerman, Eric Paulson, all these MMA trainers and also acting trainers. Some days you're just off. Some days it just doesn't work. You're in there hitting the pads and you're like, I feel like ass crack. Why is this not working? And you get down on yourself and you go home. And I realized some days it's just not your day. And the other thing I realized, I was always about pushing myself to the maximum. I've broke my neck in 3 places. I've had 4 broken arms. I've had a 6 shoulder. I've torn my rotator cuff 3 times, my labrum 3 times. I've had 3 shoulder reconstructions.
Whoa.
I spent like 5 years of my life recovering from injuries. And
was this car accident or athletics?
Just athletics, fighting, just being a wild boy. And the thing that I learned was, because of my insecurities, I would give more than I should. I would push myself to the point that I would injure myself. And then as I grew up, I stood back and I said, look, if you keep going like this, you're going to be dead. My acting career is starting to pick up. I'm starting to get more roles coming through, but also I'm starting to get injured here. So I went to the longevity picture, where I look big picture, which is what I do a lot of supplement programs for, ProFight supplements.
ProFight, right. Mm-hmm.
Where I do a lot of programs to say for joint products, for this, say, and then when it comes to training, if I'll say to someone, look, just because they say squat to your drop or squats are the best thing for your exercise, it may not be the right exercise for you. You need to listen to your own body. So that's when it comes to, people can show you, but you need to also then have your own intellect to go, you know what? All I'm doing is my back's hurting here, and that's not a good thing. You need to look big picture in everything that you do, and that goes back to where I started. I always stop my training before I'm ready. Like if I say to myself, let's do one more, I go, you know what? No, let's not do it, because 90% of the time, if I do that one more round, I do that one more set, that is when I will get injured.
Mm-hmm.
So I think as you get older, you learn to be more responsible. And if I'm in a movie and I'm the lead actor, I can't afford to get injured.
Right.
Because if I get injured, then everyone else is out of a job.
Right.
So you start to get some responsibilities. And I had a real dilemma because I was deprived so much as a child. And I would take food and put it in my thing because I didn't know when I was going to get fed again.
Right.
So when I'm on a movie set, mate, they give you so much food, so much coffee. In one day, I had 12 cans of Diet Coke and 16 coffees, just because it was there. And I was like, and I ended up tearing my hamstring because I was so dehydrated. And as an educated person, I'd go, of course, it all has caffeine. It's making you energetic. You're getting moody, and then you're going to hurt yourself. And that's on the John Lovitz movie when I did that. And I went, you know what? You need to be either get a keeper or you need to be a grown-up. And that's when I just started going to the thing where in life, you know what the right thing to do is and the wrong thing to do. That's never really the problem. It's the willpower to do what's right, to do what's going to look better for you in the big picture. Do you see this hot girl and I'm going to go hit on her and maybe go home, but then I'm going to miss 2 meals and it's going to affect my training? What's the best thing here? Let the girl go. Let's go do our training.
So you've reached a point in your life now when the training seems just as exciting as the girl. Is that what you're telling me?
No, definitely not, mate. If you find a system of training that's that exciting, you sign me up for 2 memberships.
All right. And when did you begin to teach the U.S. military?
I basically met Staff Sergeant Wilkins at the doing some security work. I've done a lot of bodyguarding, like Kanye West, different people of that nature. So I had a bit of reputation there. I did some work with them, and they got me in to do some, just to show what I know for hand-to-hand combat. It went really well, and then basically they took me under their wing, made me a member of the Wolfpack, which is combat jiu-jitsu, and I studied working on getting my black belt in that. And then I'm also a member of Sigma 6 Tactical, which is basically works with all the movies to do all the movie fighting. Also for you may want to know how to hunt. They teach you all these different things. So I became a member, and I'm trained by them and involved in that. And we actually worked together on the John Lovitz movie. So for me, I'm very proud to be here in America. I'm an American citizen. I am Australian. You know, as I said, I couldn't read or write till I was 13. I lived on the street. Nothing's been handed to me. And I watched America, and for me, Australia is the greatest country in the world, except for America. And people say, which is better? And I'll say, well, for me, at this point in my life, if Australia was better, that's where I'd be. I was the best bodybuilder in Australia at the time. I could only do so much. So coming here, it means a lot to me. So I'm very proud, and I'm a big believer in the military. You know, no matter what happens, there's evil people out there that are going to do things. So
yes, there is.
Just to be involved with these people that protect this country and be able to give back to them, doing seminars, and then having them become fans of mine and go, man, you're so nice. And I'm like, guys, you know what? I respect you. And I got to do their weapons training. I got to do the insertions, and I got to do it as a drill. And I was sweating all the way through. It was one of the few, those sex, as you brought that up, and fighting in movies. That's when I'm purely, or when I'm with my daughter, when I'm purely in the moment. And this was another time, because you're just thinking every step, and I've got my teammate on me, I've got to feel his movement. So it really gave me a respect level. And we were doing some drills, and we got into it a little bit. And, you know, I was an underground fighter. That's how I earned my reputation. I have no problem fighting.
An underground fighter means what? What's the term mean?
Basically, there's sanctioned fights where, you know, you do your medicals, you do your testing, and it's done with an official referee.
Right.
Mine was more of a street or organized type thing, from fighting someone for $20 on a street corner to fighting for $10,000 in a planned event at a squash court, fighting in squash courts.
But it was unsanctioned.
It was which means that, yeah, it's basically, it's illegal. You're not supposed to be doing it. And there's different things. And in one of the movies I recently did, because I've got such a background in that and it became prominent, that's a heavily featured thing. And it's a whole world, because people don't understand that when I got kicked out of home, I was a national level football player, rugby player, and I wanted to play in the Australian Championships, which I did. So I had to put myself through school while I lived in a building that was set for destruction. And the funny thing was, it was in Wallara, which is like Marina Del Rey, the best area, but it was a building that was set for destruction, and I snuck in there, and I lived there for like 6 months.
No kidding.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
And you'd see like the premiere.
How old were you? 15?
16 at that point. 16. And one thing I realized, like, when you have to do something, you do it. Like, I would get paid, but if you dropped the chicken or you burnt the chicken, they'd throw it in the dumpster outside in the bin. So somehow during my shift, Josh, a lot of chicken got dropped on the floor, and a lot of chicken got burnt. So you'd put it in the dumpster out the back and go collect it. But the funny thing was, the street people, they start to smell it. So after a week, the most fights I had was fighting for a chicken wing after my shift at Kentucky Fried Chicken. And let me tell you, mate, a homeless person will fight you pretty hard for a chicken wing. You throw in a dumpster and a potato, you got a brawl going on.
No, it makes a good story now, but I'm sure at the time it wasn't fun. It wasn't fun.
No, that's the thing about life.
Not really fun right at the time, really.
I don't regret any of it, because it's made me who I am, and I like who I am, and I can only be who I am to have done the things I do. And people always say to me, you know, you're so easygoing, you don't act tough, you don't do this, and I say, and why did you never really fight too many really good fights when fighters in clubs where I'd win pretty easy? I said, because a tough guy doesn't look for a fight. He doesn't want to fight, because even if I win, which I will, I'm going to hurt my hands. My aggression, the thing with me to the fighter was that I was so annoyed. I'd say, listen, I don't want to fight you because I'm going to hurt you, but at the end of that fight, I'm going to be angry. I want to enjoy my night. But obviously, I believe in the law of attraction. I was very angry at the world. And I was drawing this to me because I was trying to prove that I was tough. The world had pushed me down, and in my own way, this was how I was tough. I would find guys that were beating me up when I was a little kid at nightclubs. And yeah, that was, you know what, it was so satisfying. Anthony Schilling, if you're listening to this, I really enjoyed slapping you.
Yeah, see, unfortunately, there is in the real world there is some satisfaction. Think, okay, fine. So I was not taken advantage of. I returned the favor, and that actually does seem fair to me. It does seem very fair. I've worked with some boxers over the years. I actually once worked with Razor Ruddock, who was a contender against Tyson in Tyson's prime.
He was Canadian. He fought him twice.
He's from Jamaica. He might be Canadian.
Yeah, and he fought him twice.
5th and the 12th. He lost by decision, but he was a great fighter. And one of the things he said to me was, I was chatting with him. And this was after he lost at Tyson a couple of years afterwards. And he said, no, there's no machismo involved. The other guy you're fighting is your size. He's well trained. And if he gets a shot in, it's going to hurt. He said, he fought to earn a living. And he said all the fighters he knew felt exactly the same way. There was no Robert De Niro raging bull. They said, no, this is how they earn their living. And there was not a drop of machismo. And I thought, oh, okay, I didn't know. And he was fun to talk to, that Razor Ruddock. He was very sharp.
Yeah, professional fighters will say to someone else, hey, I don't fight for free. If you want me to whoop on your butt, you need to pay me for that privilege.
Right, which also seems very, very fair. So you've always been a self-starter in wellness, right? You just always gravitated towards and you did soccer, you did bodybuilding, you did mixed martial arts. So you're just good at this.
Yeah, I just like the physical outlet. I like learning new things. Like I do the fighting, and I am a Neanderthal in some ways, but I'm a cultured Neanderthal. I like to say it. For instance, I study fighting, boxing. And then after that becomes angles of execution, different things you can do on top of the movement. And I went so far as to leading with my left hand to studying the whole thing of leading with my right hand, changed my whole way of fighting because I seen so many angles because that excited me. So I like the physicality of it, and then I like that it's also strategy. I like that warfare technique where it meshes together. And that's why I really find the acting the next evolution of my life, because I can sit here and conversate and converse with you on all the acting techniques, the moment before, this, and this, because it comes to me like that.
Sure.
But I don't enjoy talking to another actor about it because I'm not an artist. I love the limelight. I love the creativity, but I'm a very meat and potatoes people. I'm to the point. I don't like people that say 50 words when they say 2. Like when a girl says to me, she sends me a song and says, listen to this song to see how I feel about you. I'm like, woman, just tell me. I haven't got time to listen to the song. And I also listen to the song and I'm like, what the hell did you just tell me? Woman, you wasted 10 minutes of my time. Tell me. Or they write you a letter and you're like, dude, what does this mean? And your friend's as dumb as you. So you're like, bro, I don't know if she's putting bad stuff on you or good stuff. So I'm very much that. So I'm my own person, but the acting I love because I can do the creative side and I can do that. But doing the action, then I also get to be physical.
Well, when you did the Foster's beer commercial, because actually you were very appealing in that. And now let me just say this. It's hard to get a beer commercial. They really are careful who they pick in beer commercials. And that beer commercial was like, you were very funny. And it was and I don't drink beer. And I thought that was a good commercial. How'd they find you on that one?
That's the social networking when I go, oi. That one there.
Wait, you're looking right at the camera. The camera's kind of looking at you. It was like got a little bit of a beard going, a little bit of a scruffy thing. It was very, very good.
Well, that was the funny. Basically, with those, you go for auditions. You have an agent. They send out a casting. We're looking for this particular type. Your agent sends you in there. Me being Australian, I actually booked. It's a funny story on that one that you brought that up. I actually booked a bromance commercial where it's me and another guy headbutting each other. But this is 2 commercials, which is my whole life. It was deemed too violent for TV. So that commercial didn't get used, but the one you're talking about, the social networking, everyone is yelling out that Australian saying, oi, oi. So I'm just walking in the bush behind everyone during set while they're filming and they're trying to do it and the director's trying to explain it and I'm just like, yo, guys, it's oi. And the director goes, this is yours, you get in there.
Because, really?
Yeah, because I understood what oi meant.
Exactly, right.
When you're an actor, there's saying the words, but there's infusing the feeling.
Absolutely, creating a character.
So I knew what oi meant. I wasn't acting. So that's when people go, I'm just going to go in there and wing it. Or they say, why are you so confident auditions? One, I've had probably 200 of them now. And I love being in front of the camera. It's not, you put the camera in front of me, I don't get shy. Like I'll do a scene and we'll be rehearsing it and I won't be doing it so good. But as soon as you put that camera on me, I just perform. It just takes my level up. And when we're getting ready for fight scenes, I'm a very physical person, but I'm very lazy, I guess, during my rehearsals. Everyone's like, said, bro, save it. You're going to get to jump around and we're going to do it 20 times on camera, because I'm older, I'm wiser. Everyone's trying to give so much. So I pick my moments when I'm going to compete. And that's the other thing where I'm a very competitive person, and I see it in my daughter, and I grow up looking through her eyes. And I said to her, you can't be competitive everything. I said, Daddy's a skilled person, but it doesn't matter how fast I am. If I don't know how to play tennis, I'm not going to beat the other person. Right. So I said, there's two things you got to do. Pick your spots. Be competitive of what you know you're going to be competitive. Otherwise, enjoy it. And then the other person hasn't got the satisfaction of beating you because you didn't really take it serious anyway. So it's funny where I've just tried to, I do things for children against bullies and do some a lot of child fitness stuff because I'm into that. And that, while we're on that subject, a thing that's a real pet thing of mine is parents out there that are listening to the show. And I'll say this, and I get criticized for this. If you're a fat parent, if you've got a parent who's got some kind of illness and it runs in the family, if you're fat and you get fat easy, then obviously your child's going to get fat. So why do you let your child eat junk food? Why do you let your child eat these things that are going to make them fat? And you know why you do that? Because it allows you to justify why you're fat. Oh, look, it runs in the family. It runs in the family.
Well, they don't, do you run into people, since you're a wellness guy, who've never heard before that Coca-Cola is not good for them? Not to pick on Coca-Cola, but that soda is not a good idea. People, really, we never heard that before. Don't you? Do you run it? And you might be surprised because this is what you do professionally. But really, just because you can do it or I can do it, most people, they have no idea. Just the way, let's say your car needs a new transmission. And you can't necessarily put it in today. You could be taught to put the transmission in, but not today. So you have some guy put in the transmission. But the whole idea of exercise is a good idea. Not eating processed sugar is a good idea. The average person still surprisingly doesn't know either of those ideas.
It's amazing to me because, processed food, it's not good. And the thing is, you need to, I'm all about let everyone run their own course. I look good because some other people look so bad. And if it wasn't for them,
yes, that's true. Yes, that's true.
If it wasn't for them looking bad, it wasn't for them not taking care of themselves. Right. I wouldn't be able to appreciate who I am.
Right. That's very fair.
But it sickens me when people let their weakness affect their young. So like if you've got a problem of laziness and fatness in the family, get your kid involved in sport. And it just comes to a thing where I think some parents are terrible. Like for instance, I was picked on because I had no parental guidance. You best believe I'm the first person at school to drop my daughter off every morning and the first person to pick her up. And you best believe I'm walking around in my tank top. You can see my muscles. No kid is ever going to pick on my kid because I'm socially involved in her life. I make an effort to talk to the other parents. Right. And it amazes me that I'm that parent who did everything for my child that wasn't done for me. I understand what it's like to be sitting at school and having the big kids pick on you and take your lunch and everything. I understand all that. So rather than make my child go through that, when so many parents do, I protect my child from that. So I got a real thing where I see parents abusing their children and not taking care of them, because people need to understand one day that child is going to be a man or a woman and they're going to look you in the eye and you're going to know you did a bad job as a parent. And there's nothing more important than your child, because friends will come and go, women will come and go, business opportunities will come and go, but your child is the most important thing in your life. And if you've got to run out the door and you haven't got time to be with your child, then you don't deserve to have a child, and that child's going to turn its back on you one day and remember what you did to it. And to me, that's just scary, because
it's terribly upsetting. Can I ask you a personal question?
Mm-hmm.
Do you see your mom and dad today? Do you see them regularly?
I haven't talked to my mother since I came to America, like 16 years. She's a very interesting woman. I'll leave it at that. My dad and we get on great. After we became close, and after we became close, then I had a daughter, and then I built up some resentment towards him because I was, in my mind, doing everything that I should have been doing for my daughter, but none of that was done for me.
Right.
So I became very resentful. I wrote him a letter, and went through my little pissy fit and everything, and then he rang me, and he had cancer, and it was inoperable, and he was going to die.
Oh God.
So then it guess before, when death comes on it, then you're like, you know what? Then it all sank into place. I said, he was 20 years old when he had me. He was an alcoholic. He suffered from schizophrenia. Then I felt sorry for him. I hopped on a plane. I didn't tell him. I walked in and gave him a cuddle. He survived, and we've got a great relationship to this day. And he talks to his goddaughter, his granddaughter on Skype and everything. And and he would talk to me, and I'd just say, listen, Dad, you're the toughest man in the world. You're the toughest man in the world I know. You're going to beat this. And he did. So it was a wake-up call. But with my mum, that's just something I'll just stay away from that for a while. One day I'd hope to reunite with her, but probably me, I'm not strong enough to deal with the kind of drama that she would bring back into my life. I'm all about keeping my life easy. If you're not assisting me in my life and helping me to get to where I want, then you're not part of my life. And people can say that's selfish, but at the end of the day, you're here to make yourself happy. And if I'm happy, then I can come on here and do a good interview. Then I can be loving to my daughter. But it all starts with you, where you need to put something into yourself so you can give something to other people.
Well, Guy, you have some. Guy, we're speaking with Guy Grundy, champion bodybuilder. I'm looking at the camera here, so I'm supposed to do that. You seem to have some very good insight for a young man who really wasn't given much guidance, or really very little, no guidance.
Thanks, mate. I've grown up a lot. I sit back, I look at all my mistakes. I've circulate with some people that I admire and look up to, and I'm always looking to improve. I'm asking myself questions, and I know where I want to go, and it's just starting to eliminate things. And I think it's just being comfortable with myself. I like who I am. When I was a little kid, I wanted to be a dude who was muscular, who could fight, and a movie star. And those first two I've got, and now I'm moving into the movie thing. So it also kind of makes it, when they say the law of attraction, I'm a big believer in that, and I believe it a lot and read about it. I just knew when I was a kid that I was going to come to America and become a citizen here, and I did. I had no plan at all, but I just knew it within my heart. Just like I always knew I was going to be an actor. I wanted to be a Hollywood movie star. And two things: that my grandmother, who's the mother of my father, was just I lived with her for a year, just a different kind of woman. Her words to me were, "You're a Grundy, which means you'll never amount to anything."
Oh, yeah, different generation. Yeah, right.
And then my mother, who's my father's, Wendy Webb, much love to you. She'd always say to me, "God, you're going to be a movie star one day." So, and when I do that, I'm always reminded of her. So I just keep saying to people are going to think about you either way. They're going to think about you not at all, badly or goodly. I want you to think about me good, but also I also say this: there are 7 billion people on this planet, Josh. Not everyone's going to like you. And I don't need for you to like me. And you need to focus on the people that do like you. So many people, human nature is, from dating girls, I see this out there with people doing it, the games people play. Everyone wants what they can't have, what tingles on the outside. The grass is always greener. And it's so true, where you see it with girls playing games with guys, and my friends do it and I watch. And I get an education. I'm like, this is comedy. You're going to wait 3 days to call her. Then she's going to wait 3 days to call you. Then you're going to have a date in 2 weeks, and then you'll probably sleep with her on the third date. He goes, yep, that's pretty much how it's going to go. So it's a thing where with your children, your family, and your close friends, put your energy into them. Don't try to reach out and bring someone else into your circle. And the other thing is, when you become wealthier and more famous, you do change. The people you hang out with will change because you gravitate to a different type of person.
Because you're a little more secure. Because you could be the nicest person in the world. If you have no place to live and no food to eat, it's hard to be a gracious person, isn't it? I hate to say that, right? Because you want to be able to rise above stuff. But if you can't pay the rent, or frankly buy food, it's hard to be a gracious person. So you do need that economic underpinning, and really you just can't get around it. You just cannot get around it.
100% true. And the reason you change is because you now have money. If I'm relying on you for money, I may not even like you, but I will like you because you're giving me the money. But then when I've got this money, you're $500 a week to me, or whatever, it's not as important. And then I look at you different. God, he was annoying. So it's a thing of, it's not that people change you. Like, look at couples, and you've got couples that were together from bodybuilding, fighting and acting. I won't name names, that were together with their woman since sweethearts. Then when they got rich and famous, they broke up because they changed. They could have any woman they wanted. This woman who was loyal to them, or this man, it's a changed picture. And that's the thing to remember. What you want now changes, not day to day, but it can change week to week, year to year. What I wanted 5 years ago, it's modified, it's updated, it's changed. And what I want in a friend, it's changed. A certain fighting style, I actually thought it was the best style in the world, but now that I've done this style, I don't think that anymore. And that's what life's about. It's about continually changing. If you think the same thing every day for the rest of your life, then you haven't gone anywhere, because the evolution's about change. The car changed to the Ferrari, the planes in the air. So that's the other thing, and you need to accept and embrace change. Like, I remember, oh my God, this is going to change. I don't want to change. I'm so happy right now. And I would stress out, but the point is, things are going to change, and you just got to roll with it. Like someone who says to me, in a fight, like, what, you don't seem to care about getting hit. I said, no, I know I'm going to get hit. The guy goes, I'm going to evade every punch. I'm not going to get hit. I'm like, bro, you're an idiot, because you're going to get hit in there. And then what are you thinking? And that's the other thing, why I was a fighter and I did so well. I would accept straight away when the situation was going to happen, I'm going to get hurt right now. I'm going to get hurt. When other people do it, you see it in their face. People like to bullies. Or they talk big. I'll say, bro, you don't need to keep talking. You're going to fight me right now. And you see their demeanor change. And I said, now you're thinking about how much hurt you're going to get, aren't you? Because they do. And that's the thing about bullies. They pick on the other people because they get away with it. And it's the same, like, I've been in jail. I've been arrested by SWAT. I've been held on over $1 million for believed mafia suspicions. Like I said, I've lived a pretty crazy life. But you go in jail, that's the same thing that's rampant through society. And that's why it always comes back to physicality for me. You can go to jail and you can be the best shotgun person, the best serial killer, the best driving, whatever it is. If you can't fight, you're going to get your ass kicked. It becomes primitive. And that's what, to me, as a man's all about, like, defending my own. Because if you take everything away, all the weapons and everything, it's just me against you. And you see that in jail so prevalent, where basically someone's going to pick on you. And you're going to stand up to them and you're going to fight. You may get your butt whooped, but the difference is now everyone's like, you know what, leave him alone, because even though you're going to whoop his butt, you're going to have to fight him. The one guy that lets everyone walk over him, everyone goes to him first. They're looking for the soft mark. So I've been in jail and I just said, listen, homeboy, like, they're a different race and you mingle in, but I knew him. Just take an ass whooping and I guarantee they'll leave you alone. And he did. And they just said, you know what, this kid can't fight, but he's got a lot of heart. So it comes down to, that unfortunately the weak do get taken advantage of. And I've always done my best to be there for them, because I've had a few people that were there for me when I needed, and to be able to give that feeling back to me, that's a pretty remarkable thing.
Yes, I think so. Guy Grundy, this has been a remarkable interview. How can we contact you?
First things first, I want to do one thing.
Yes.
My little daughter's out there, Jessie.
Okay.
She's in Japan right now with the grandparents. So Daddy's on the show here, and we've got a friend. It's Charlie Brown. Actually, my grandpa, when I was born, called me Charlie Brown because he said I had a big round head with a few hairs on it.
Aha.
So Charlie Brown, what? You want to tell Mummy what? Jessie, Charlie Brown says he misses you and Kunku, and he says you've got the coolest dad in the world. Yes, he did. Love you, sweetheart.
Well, thank you very much. You're listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live Transmedia Network. I'm your host, Joshua Lane. My guest has been the Australian bodybuilder Guy Grundy. I'm going to take a short break. We'll be right back after these important messages.
Hi, this is Burness Heron inviting you to join me every Tuesday at 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time for our all-new show, The Mortgage Show. Join us as we discuss exclusive new products and programs through government and conventional financing. No mortgage-related topics are spared. Come with me through this journey of informative, stimulating conversation, giving you the facts, clarity, and insight you deserve. You never heard a mortgage show like this before. You'll be enlightened, educated at the same time. This is for the community, for the nation, for everyone. As the industry evolves, we evolve. So don't forget to tune into The Mortgage Show, 3 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, exclusively on latalklive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B, or just watch us on Ustream TV, reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we're more than just talk.
Hi, this is Dawn Christie inviting you to join me every Friday, 1 p.m. Pacific, for my all-new show, The Dawn Christie Show. Join me as I discuss love, spiritual readings, your purpose, why am I born, what am I here to do. So don't forget to tune in The Dawn Christie Show at 1 p.m. Pacific exclusively on LA Talk Live. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream TV, reality radio, handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Hello, I'm Joel Ramirez.
And I'm Lolita Robinson Coppage, and welcome to Joy in My House
on LATalkLive.com. Inspirational radio
with a touch of recovery.
A reality show where nothing is left unsaid.
And no one is insignificant who says it.
Exclusively on LATalkLive.com. You can also catch us on iTunes Radio R&B or watch us on Ustream TV.
Reality radio handcrafted for your listening pleasure. This is LA Talk Live, and we are more than just talk.
Joshua Lane, member of the board of directors of Dr. Ann Wigmore's Hippocrates Health Institute, Josh Lane was part of the Dr. Ann Wigmore team that brought wheatgrass, sprouts, and raw foods to a worldwide audience. And now the host of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, Joshua Lane.
We're back. Thank you for tuning in to this edition of Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live Transmedia Network. I'm your host, Josh Lane. My next guest is Mark Lovendale, the author of Quality Longevity. Mark has been active in wellness circles for a very long time, and the book is very nicely done and it's authoritative. So it's a great pleasure to have Mark Lovendale on Here's to Your Health. Mark, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
I enjoyed your book, and let me just jump right into this. I noticed that in your book, you like to make some fun of the use of cow's milk products, and you don't seem to pull any punches. And so why don't you tell my audience why you're unhappy with cow's milk and why you feel that as a nutritionist, it's not the best choice for us?
There's a broad range of reasons why cow's milk is not compatible with the human body. Basically, cow's milk was designed by Mother Nature to be the ideal food for calves, but calves only up to the time that they were weaned. The idea that somehow humans would be the only mammal that needs another mammal's milk and needs milk after infancy has been proven by nutrition science to be absolutely untrue. Mm-hmm. There's a number of problems with cow's milk. One of the ones that was discovered by T. Colin Campbell of the China study was that cow's milk actually, the protein in cow's milk is casein. And while casein is an excellent promoter of growth in infants, casein, once the animal is beyond infancy, casein works as a promoter of growth of cancer cells. And he clearly demonstrated this in studies that he did. And so it's just one of the problems with cow's milk is that the type of protein in it accelerates the incidence of cancer. Also, cow's milk has a number of other problems with it. It also contains high levels of dioxin because the animals eat feed that has dioxin in it. And dioxin is a major chemical pollutant. It was the trace pollutant that was in Agent Orange that made so many people have cancer that were fighting in Vietnam. And dioxin is something you want to avoid to the very best of your ability. And it's very high in cow's milk and beef.
And now, you've been doing this for a very long time, and may I ask, who did you read when you were, I'm assuming, a teenage boy, that you thought, my God, this is interesting? Who did you read?
Well, as a teenager, I was very ignorant about nutrition science because at that time, nutrition science really hadn't been developed well enough to find books on it. However, I met a Dr. Theron Randolph in the early 1970s.
Oh, my goodness.
He spoke at a medical convention that I went to, And it was just clear that he had answers that the traditional doctors didn't have. Though he was a board-certified allergist, he didn't use the typical allergy techniques of giving people skin tests and then years of weekly allergy shots. He looked for the underlying cause of their symptoms and then removed the cause instead of treating the cause. And so I studied with him for a couple of years and did consulting work for him and saw people that went through his program get dramatically better. And so at that point, about 1976, I thought I was very knowledgeable in the area of nutrition.
Sure.
And then I met Nathan Pritikin at a medical talk that he gave in Pasadena, and I realized there was a whole separate breakthrough that was different than the one that Dr. Randolph had been largely responsible for discovering. What Nathan Pritikin talked about was the optimum balance of fats, proteins, and carbohydrates.
Mm-hmm.
And when people have the ideal levels of fats, proteins, and carbohydrates, a number of diseases don't develop, and a number of diseases that are the major killers of Americans can actually be reversed. So I studied what Pritikin was doing for a year, and then I took these two separate breakthroughs and combined them together into one book, which was an early version of Quality Longevity.
And so what prompted you to go to a medical convention?
At that time I was married and my wife was quite ill. I was working in the aerospace industry.
As a what?
I was a project manager working on 747s for Boeing and also with Western Gear Corporation on arming helicopters for Vietnam.
May I ask, where'd you go to school?
I graduated from USC in business, and I've always had a big interest in engineering and using the scientific method for solving problems.
Mm-hmm.
And so I set out to spend a couple of months helping to solve my wife's health problems, and I've been working on that for the last 35 years.
Because you just found as a man with a good science background that just made sense to you. Has that just made sense?
Yes. What I discovered is that the medical profession, unlike the aerospace engineers and rocket scientists, the medical profession doesn't use the scientific method in most cases. They're happy with just giving a name to the symptoms and then seeing what kinds of drugs and surgeries they can use for treating those symptoms rather than removing the cause. And it really wasn't until the advances made by Dr. Randolph and then the additional advances made by Nathan Pritikin as we had a sound foundation for nutrition science.
But yes, but now that it's 2013, I have noticed, since this is also my favorite subject, that say for the past certainly 5 years, and for some progressives even longer than the past 5 years, the fact that there is a movement away from the use of grain, which I don't remember hearing about in the 70s or 80s, because they feel that it floods the body with too much insulin, and that even a gluten-free grain like brown rice, that grains in general can be problematic. How do you feel about that information?
That information has some validity and some serious flaws. The validity comes about because cereal grains are not a natural food for humans. We only started to consume them around 10 to 11,000 years ago, and prior to that, we didn't consume them, and no other primate to this day in the wild consumes cereal grains. So they're not a natural food for us. They have to be cooked before we can eat them. And there is a good deal of trouble with cereal grains because they often set up reactions that are referred to as delayed food allergies. Mm-hmm. Very different from what the board-certified allergist deals with and believes in, which are acute food allergies, which can cause hives and breathing problems. Delayed food allergies often cause symptoms that show up the next day or even 2 days later, and they can be everything from arthritis to migraine headaches. Mm-hmm. And so a lot of people who are now benefiting because they are avoiding gluten, as an example, they think it's because of some reaction with the gluten in the villi of their small intestine. But in fact, if you actually take 100 people who've been helped by going gluten-free, less than 5% of them will be shown to be gluten sensitive. The other 95% have these delayed allergic reactions to wheat or barley or rye, and in some cases millet, and that is where the benefit comes from. But you don't want to stop there, because some people have these delayed allergic reactions to other foods, such as in the cereal grain family, such as corn or rice.
Mm-hmm.
But it can also be broccoli for some people, and though that's much more unusual, but there's a broad range of different reactions that people can have to foods. And so to just remove some of them by avoiding gluten is to miss the big picture.
And since it's 2013 now, have you found that in your practice, are you no, because new information is always coming to the foreground. For example, in the year 2000, did really any of us really know that supposedly 70% of the immune system was in the GI tract? I mean, and now we take that for granted, don't we? I mean, pretty much everyone we kind of know that. I mean, of course, it's not a very super scientific statement because there's much more depth to it. But we didn't know that in the 70s or 80s?
That's true, we didn't, but we did know that one of the things that happens in these delayed allergic reactions is serotonin gets out of balance. The serotonin, first of all, what happens in these delayed allergic reactions, the white blood cells are killed, but after eating the food, and that releases a number of digestive enzymes that are pumped through the body, and it can cause upset brain chemistry because the blood chemistry became upset. And so when people avoid those foods that kill their white blood cells, they can avoid this problem and have a balanced serotonin levels, which is very important for avoiding things like depression. Much better to eat your compatible foods than take dangerous drugs like Prozac or Zoloft for depression, when you can avoid the underlying cause of depression by eating foods that are compatible with your body.
That's a very strong statement. Have you worked with patients successfully in that area?
I have. Over the last 30 years, we have worked with literally thousands of patients, not only in this country, but throughout Europe. The kind of work that we do is much more popular in Europe because in Europe, the allergists are prevented from using skin tests and allergy shots. So in Europe, the allergists like us. In this country, the allergists don't like us because when people find out they're compatible foods, they can avoid uncomfortable skin tests and then years of weekly allergy shots, which have some negative consequences, and that's why they're largely blocked from being used in Europe.
Sure. Now, let me ask you the question that is on many people's mind. So, are you vegetarian in orientation?
No, I'm not. I eat a small amount of foods from animals, but I pick those foods such as fish or fowl that is compatible with my white blood cells. As an example, I don't eat chicken, but I do occasionally eat turkey. At the same time, I don't want to eat foods that are too high in cholesterol because I want to keep my total blood cholesterol under 150. Mm-hmm. And this is part of the breakthrough that Nathan Pritikin came about. So we need to eat foods that are not only compatible with our immune system, but also ones that are compatible with the walls of our arteries.
So were you vegetarian at one time?
I was a lacto-ovo vegetarian at one time, and my health continually went downhill because one of the foods that's very damaging to me is dairy products. Mm-hmm. And so I would continue to eat yogurt during that time, and my health got worse. And it wasn't until I met Dr. Theron Randolph that I realized that I needed to avoid all dairy products in order to have good health.
And then after that, you reached a moment when you thought, okay, I'm going to start eating chicken and turkey.
I don't eat chicken because it kills my white blood cells, and I end up with symptoms for a couple of days.
And can I ask what the symptoms are in your body?
Yeah, in my particular body, I get congestion. I also get some arthritis in my knees. So it shows up very clearly for me if I eat chicken or other foods like dairy products that I have a delayed allergic reaction to that kills my white blood cells. So what I do is I eat a broad range of fresh vegetables. I eat some cereal grains that are compatible with my white blood cells, such as millet and barley. However, I avoid wheat very carefully because it's very damaging to my white blood cells and my overall health.
Do you find when you work with patients that there's a huge spread on what we can and cannot eat?
There is. There's actually been two different theories throughout the last 100 years, and that is, well, we're really all alike, and then there's another theory that we're all different. Well, the research that we have done has found out in many respects we are all alike because we do best on a diet that has around 10% total calories and fat, 10% protein, and 80% complex carbohydrate. This 10-10-80 balance has been shown in numerous studies to reverse plaques in the arteries and prevent people from having heart disease and stroke. And there's 15 different kinds of cancer that are also prevented if people are on that type of diet. So we're all the same in regard to that. We're all somewhat different as far as the foods that are compatible with our immune system. In my particular case, I made the mistake of doing macrobiotics at one time, and repetitious exposure is how one gets allergic to, one of the ways people get allergic to foods, and I got very allergic to rice, so I do no rice at all.
So you were macrobiotic. You read Michio Kushi, Herman Ohara, Cornelia
when,
Ohara.
When they were just getting started, I decided I'd give that a try.
Was this in the 60s?
Yes. And
oh my goodness.
And then
good for you.
I felt better at first on the macrobiotic diet, but then because I went off of all dairy products.
Right.
No
and sugar, right? No sugar.
No sugar, but brown rice. So I felt better at first, and then my health started to noticeably decline. And I learned through working with Dr. Randolph that I had actually become allergic to rice. And so even to this day, I avoid rice very carefully.
Because you ate it all the time?
Yeah, repetitious exposure. And we've tested through the years, we've tested a number of people who've done macrobiotics. And in almost all cases, they have shown up to be allergic to rice because of their excessive consumption of brown rice.
So that's an important concept, the idea that we need to rotate the diet.
Yes, absolutely. And that also fits with the kind of diet we evolved on. There's still one group of people in the world that lives on that diet, and they're the San tribes people in Central Africa. And the San tribes people use their hands to gather their food. The women do most of the gathering. The men go out hunting with little bows, and they occasionally will bring in some animal. But about 90% of their diet is vegetables, no cereal grains, and this is the kind of diet that we evolved on. And their diet changes throughout the years as different things come into their fruition depending on the seasons that they are available. And so their diet is varied throughout the year, and they eat a diet that's very low fat and moderate in protein and high in complex carbohydrate. And thus they don't have the heart disease and stroke, and they also have a broad range of other symptoms they don't have.
Let me ask you, well, let me just station identification. For those of you just tuning in to Here's to Your Health, we're speaking with Mark Lovendale, the author of Quality Longevity. Mark has been around for a long time doing wellness ideas. Let me ask you a very important but very basic question. What's your position on the use of processed sugar?
Well, sugar is very damaging. Because what Dr. Sanchez at Loma Linda University showed is that sugar actually cripples our white blood cells. So if we eat sugar, it makes the white blood cells sick. And then if we eat sugar along with a food that kills our white blood cells, it does far more damage than it would if just eating the sugar by itself or the other food by itself. So that's not as well-known problem with sugar. There's a broad range of other problems with it, as lack of nutrients and everything else. And if you think about it, the San tribes people, as they wander around in the wilderness, they would not come across any simple carbohydrates, with the exception if they were brave enough to go into a beehive and get a little honey occasionally. But the idea that cane sugar or beet sugar should be any significant part of our diet is a huge mistake that has been recognized across the board. However, the really more damaging is the excess fat in the diet, because as vegetable oil and animal fat goes up, the incidence of prostate cancer and breast cancer go up, as does heart disease and stroke.
If you're going to counsel a patient, let's say there's a new client, and the client really, truly has never heard anything you have to say, do you feel that telling them not to eat processed sugar is that the thing you stress most? Is that the best idea you offer for your clients?
No, we don't, because most of the people who come to us for nutritional counseling are well aware of how damaging sugar is.
Okay.
So we don't have to stress that. The thing that we stress is eating those foods that are compatible with their white blood cells. We also stress eating the optimum levels of fats, proteins, and carbohydrates. So there's a number of things that we help depending on the individual. And one of the things we suggest to people before they come to see us is that they go on our website and order the copy of the book Quality and Longevity. And that way they have a background as to the different possibilities that come out of eating foods that are compatible with their immune system and compatible with their arteries.
When you work with clients, do you find you're recommending more probiotics these days than you did, say, 20 years ago, and also more digestive enzymes? That's the question.
Yes. The probiotics have been shown to be very helpful, and they have actually progressed significantly over the last 20 years. Mm-hmm. And so that they are much more tuned to what we actually need. Contrary to the probiotics that are in yogurt, which are designed for making the yogurt tasty, there's actually a whole separate group of probiotics that are ideal for our bodies. Mm-hmm. And the second part of your question was?
Digestive enzymes.
Oh, yeah, digestive enzyme. Mm-hmm. A number of people with these delayed food allergies are benefited by taking digestive enzymes, because one of the things that happens of years of eating foods people are allergic to is the pancreas becomes exhausted. So taking the enzymes can be very helpful for them.
And are there, you can mention a brand if you wish, or brands, or pancreatin, beta-pepsin. I mean, is there anything you find that in general you happen to recommend for clients, or vegetarian digestive enzymes? What do you find is effective?
Well, each person really has to work that out for themselves as to which is the optimum. And one of the key things is in the supplement for the digestive enzymes is to make sure that there are no dairy products or wheat flour in with them. And that's also particularly true for the probiotics, because lots of probiotics are made on cow's milk, and thus people's health actually gets worse. But the better brands have all been made free of dairy products, and so you can pick those from your health food store which have the optimum type of probiotics, plus they haven't been raised on dairy products.
That's, the ideas you offer, I find, I thought your book was nicely done and fun. It was actually kind of fun. I hate to say it, but I found a picture of Richard Nixon with a little milk mustache kind of amusing. I mean, a lot of people who are terribly young would think, oh, who's that picture of that historical figure? But when you're our age, a picture of Richard Nixon gives you a more visceral response, possibly. Having said that, where can I get a copy of your book, Quality Longevity?
The best place to get it is to go to our website, which is preventivecare.com. That's PREVENTIVECARE. That's one word, .com. And they can order the book there. And for your listeners, I'd like to make a special offer. We'll also include a DVD of documentaries on nutrition science, and we'll also give your listeners a guarantee. After ordering the book, if they don't think that it was helpful and beneficial, we will refund their money. They can send the book back and we'll send their money back. We found that works fine, because when people get the book and start reading it, they're happy and on their way to much better health.
Well, Mark Lovendale, I very much appreciate you being a guest today on Here's to Your Health. Thank you very much. I hope to have you back again.
Good.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mark. You've been listening to Here's to Your Health on the LA Talk Live Transmedia Network. I'm your host, Josh Lane. Thank you for tuning in, and we will see you next week. For more information about the guests and sponsors of Here's to Your Health on LA Talk Live, please call us at 818-707-0005.